Maxine the Bobcat was finally delivering her kittens after an unanticipated pregnancy. However, the wildlife team at the Hillside Nature Reserve were astonished when they discovered something was wrong with her litter, compelling them to step in during a possibly perilous scenario. Maxine, recognized for her detached and solitary demeanor, had been monitored for weeks, her actions baffling the reserve's keepers. Later that afternoon, Dr. Brian Carter, the veterinarian on duty, and Ethan Nolan, the chief wildlife expert, stood outside Maxine's enclosure, watching her with worry. The typically aloof bobcat moved anxiously, her smooth fur undulating with stress. Her sharp golden eyes, usually so composed and strategic, were now filled with discomfort. At times, she emitted deep guttural growls that sent chills down the spine of the reserve staff. For hours, Maxine's pacing persisted, broken only by occasional instances when she stooped low to the earth, her tail thrashing wildly. Brian and Ethan shared concerned looks as it became clear Maxine was in labor. They were aware she was expecting, although the precise timeline had been unclear. This occurrence happened sooner than expected, triggering a flurry of rushed preparations among the team. The team anticipated that Maxine would have 2 or 3 kittens due to the size of her round belly. The examinations performed a few days earlier revealed no indications of issues, yet her agitation and the early timing caused concern among all. The births within the wildlife reserve were naturally uncertain, and the risks were significant. Maxine played a vital role in their conservation initiative, having been saved from an illegal fur trapping operation and rehabilitated to thrive in the semi-wild sanctuary. The birthing area had been carefully arranged, fitted with cameras to observe the process while respecting Maxine's privacy. The reserve team observed nervously from the observation room as she ultimately got comfortable in the den, her breaths coming in quick, heavy gasps. Maxine's age introduced more worry. At 8 years old, she was approaching the upper limit of the breeding range for bobcats, and this pregnancy was viewed as both a blessing and a risk. After almost an hour of effort, Maxine exerted a strong push, and the initial kitten appeared. The team exhaled in unison, with relief, when the small wet creature wriggled and emitted its initial high-pitched sounds. Maxine swiftly started to groom her kitten, her coarse tongue carefully cleaning the delicate newborn. Soon after, a second kitten appeared, succeeded by a third. Every birth generated a surge of enthusiasm among the staff as they admired the sight of the lively, healthy kittens. When the fourth kitten arrived, Maxine looked completely drained. Her smooth body swayed with every breath as she pulled her kittens near, her instincts kicking in despite her tiredness. Brian and Ethan shared a look, awestruck by the wonder they had observed. 4 kittens were an impressive result for a bobcat of her age, yet Maxine was not done. With a final guttural growl and a forceful push, she delivered a 5th kitten. The room grew quiet as the camera focused on the infant. There was something amiss. Although the initial 4 kittens were of typical size, their fur already displaying subtle patterns of spots and stripes, the 5th one was worryingly tiny and delicate. Its coat was thin and uneven, exposing light, nearly see-through skin underneath. The small creature hardly budged, its limbs weak and uncoordinated. Brian instantly realized the seriousness of the situation. "That one is in danger," he whispered, already starting to get ready for action. Ethan nodded solemnly, knowing from his years of experience that the kitten had little hope. However, before they could near the enclosure, they needed to take into account the possible response of its highly protective mother. Maxine, although she was tired, remained attentive to the activity outside her den. Her keen eyes tracked every movement of the staff, and her body stiffened protectively whenever someone approached too near. Bobcats, particularly new moms, were famously erratic. The employees had no means of predicting how Maxine might respond if they tried to get the distressed kitten. While discussing their forthcoming action, an unforeseen occurrence took place. Maxine moved back from her kittens, her gaze locked on the little, still form of her fifth-born. She prodded it softly with her nose, making faint, sorrowful noises as though coaxing it to react. Upon hearing the vet team's arrival, her response shocked all who were present. Instead of displaying aggression, Maxine shifted to the side of the den, her body language unsure, yet non-threatening. It seemed as if she realized the humans were present to assist. Interpreting this as a signal, Brian and Ethan moved forward carefully. The other bobcats in the neighboring enclosures observed quietly, their typical restlessness substituted with an unsettling calmness. Brian donned gloves and readied himself for potential opposition, then cautiously stepped into the den. Maxine observed closely, but did not intervene as he carefully picked up the fragile kitten and walked over to the examination table positioned nearby. The air was thick with anxiety as Brian performed a rapid evaluation. The kitten's breaths were faint, its little chest scarcely moving up and down. It was extremely underweight, with its bones protruding through its delicate skin. The team acted quickly, providing fluids and placing the kitten in a warmed incubator to regulate its body temperature. Maxine stayed at the doorway of her den, her golden eyes fixed on the humans as they toiled. Despite her visible composure, the staff kept a respectful distance, aware that any abrupt motion could trigger her defensive instincts. Days passed as the team dedicated their efforts to rescuing the little kitten they called Aspen. The chances were not in its favor. Aspen was born with a congenital flaw that hindered its nursing ability, necessitating tube feeding and ongoing attention. The team sought advice from wildlife experts and veterinarians nationwide, combining their knowledge to provide Aspen with the greatest opportunity for survival. As Maxine cared for her other 4 kittens, she remained dedicated. She groomed them, kept them cozy, and watched over them with a vigilance that was equally uplifting and heart-wrenching. She often looked toward the spot where Aspen was receiving care, her nurturing instincts evidently reaching out to her ailing kitten. Even with the separation, Aspen's state gradually started to get better. Its previously weak movements gained strength, and its gentle cries became more pronounced. The uneven fur began to grow in, and its eyes, which had remained shut since birth, finally opened to show a set of bright blue irises. The team met each small milestone with careful hope, having become very fond of the little fighter. Reintroducing Aspen to Maxine and the other puppies was a sensitive procedure. The relationship between a mother bobcat and her kittens is essential for their growth, and the team feared that the separation could have interfered with that bond. On the day it finally arrived, Brian gently set Aspen down a short distance from Maxine, holding his breath while he took a step back to watch. Maxine moved in gradually, her actions purposeful. She inhaled the scent of Aspen, her nose grazing the little kitten's small form. For a brief instant, the team paused, uncertain of her response. Then, to their great relief, Maxine started grooming Aspen with the same attentive care she had given her other kittens. She grabbed the small bobcat by the back of its neck and brought it back to the other kittens, snuggling it into the warm group of siblings. The scene brought tears to the eyes of several on the team. Defying all expectations, Aspen not only endured, but was also reunified with its family, embraced and cared for by its determined mother. The other kittens appeared to embrace Aspen readily, their spirited exchanges reflecting the depth of their family connection. As weeks transformed into months, Aspen persisted in flourishing and prospering. The previously delicate kitten evolved into a spirited and daring young bobcat, frequently guiding its siblings in playful adventures throughout the enclosure. Maxine's constant attention had provided her 5 kittens with the support necessary for them to thrive. The tale of Maxine and Aspen swiftly turned into an emblem of hope and strength, highlighting the vital efforts taking place at the Hillside Nature Reserve. The reserve installed a live stream camera in the bobcat habitat, enabling audiences globally to observe the daily activities of the bobcat family. Contributions flooded in, supporting additional conservation initiatives and guaranteeing the ongoing care of the animals. Maxine's transformation from a saved bobcat to a loving mother showcased the lasting resilience of wildlife and the influence of committed conservation efforts. Her tale and Aspen's miraculous survival acted as a touching reminder of the fragile equilibrium between nature and human involvement, a balance that, when approached with care and kindness, could result in remarkable results.